Tag TV brings you daily news bulletin from India. Breaking news and views from India.
Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I am Uzma Jafri. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Friday, the 31st of May. 3 terrorists neutralized in encounter in India's Jammu and Kashmir. Indian Prime Minister Modi meets BIMSTEC leaders in New Delhi. And car bomb targets US convoy in Afghan capital, several casualties reported. And now for all the details. Security forces gunned down 3 terrorists in an encounter in Shopian district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province on Friday. Meanwhile, exchange of fire was also underway in Kishtwar and Pulwama districts of the province till the last reports came in.
Three terrorists were neutralized by security forces in an encounter in Shopian district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province on Friday. The encounter broke out after a search operation was launched in a village in Shopian early in the morning upon specific inputs about the presence of the terrorists in the area. One of the slain terrorists was identified as a member of Pakistan-based Hizbul Mujahideen terror group. The identities of the other 2 was still being ascertained. Meanwhile, exchange of fire between terrorists and security forces was also reported later in the day in Kishtwar and Pulwama districts of the province on Friday, till the last reports came in. India has long accused neighbouring Pakistan of arming and infiltrating terrorists from across the border to spread unrest in Kashmir Valley. Pakistan, however, denies the allegations.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the leaders of BIMSTEC member nations in New Delhi after taking oath for the second term. The world leaders were invited to Modi's swearing-in ceremony, ignoring Pakistan, suggesting any early warming in ties is unlikely.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met the President of Kyrgyzstan and leaders of Bay of Bengal Initiative of Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation or BIMSTEC member nations in New Delhi after taking oath for a second term. During his meeting with President of Kyrgyzstan Suronbay Jeenbekov on Thursday night at the Indian Presidential Palace, right after his swearing-in ceremony, both the leaders discussed bilateral economic and cultural ties. On Friday, he met Sri Lankan President Maithripala Sirisena, Prime Minister of Mauritius Pravind Jugnauth, Nepalese Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, Prime Minister of Bhutan Lothe Tshering and Bangladeshi President Mohammad Abdul Hamid. The leaders of BIMSTEC countries were invited to Modi's swearing-in ceremony, ignoring Pakistan, suggesting any early warming in ties is unlikely. However, Modi could meet Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan at a summit of Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Kyrgyzstan next month that both leaders may attend.
Doctors are struggling to cope with an alarming outbreak of young patients infected with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, in a town in Pakistan's Sindh province. The cases underline the dire state of the healthcare in poor towns and villages across Pakistan, where many people cannot afford expensive tests or medicines.
In the dusty town of Rattodero in Pakistan's Sindh province, doctors are struggling to cope with an alarming outbreak of young patients infected with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, with almost 700 of new cases over the past few months, most of them children. But many of the families cannot afford proper treatment, which usually involves regular trips to provincial capital Karachi for medicines. Some families like Nazir Hussain Shah, whose 16-month-old infant daughter was diagnosed HIV positive in February, could not fathom how the virus managed to infect his loved one.
बीइंग एजुकेटेड मैंने पहले से ही पढ़ा हुआ था इसके बारे में, HIV के बारे में। तो मुझे पहले तो गुस्सा आ गया कि भाई ये तो इस बच्ची में मुमकिन ही नहीं कि इसमें HIV पॉजिटिव का कोई क्लू मिले या कोई, हम सोच भी नहीं सकते, इम्पॉसिबल बात थी मेरे लिए तो ये। और ये तो मैंने उसे कहा कि भाई ये क्या मजाक कर रहे हो आप हमारे साथ कि इसको HIV होगा। उसने कहा कि भाई आप पहले करवा के तो आओ।
Officials suspect quack medical practitioners who are widespread in poor towns and villages across Pakistan of reusing syringes and providing improperly screened blood transfusions. The federal government has reportedly ordered 50,000 HIV kits and is setting up 3 treatment centers around Larkana district. Pakistani officials estimate the country has 163,000 HIV and AIDS patients. The cases underline the dire state of healthcare in Pakistan, a nation of 208 million, where almost a third of the population lives on under $3.20 a day, and where many people cannot afford expensive tests or medicines.
Moving on. Activists of Pashtun Tahaffuz Movement or PTM staged a protest earlier this week in Canada against the killing of innocent PTM workers by Pakistani army on May 26th. They highlighted innocent Pashtuns have been targets of military operations, ethnic stereotyping and abductions by the Pakistani security forces.
Activists of Pashtun Tahaffuz Movement or PTM gathered in Canada's Mississauga city earlier this week to stage protest against killing of innocent PTM workers by the Pakistani army on May 26th. The protesters chanted slogans against the Pakistani army and its intelligence agencies while urging the international community to intervene and call for a judicial probe into the killings. They also highlighted enforced disappearances, extrajudicial executions and discrimination against the ethnic Pashtuns.
It's a continuation of the threats given by the DGISPR, Asif Kapoor, a few days back, where he said that PTM, your time is up.
The PTM, whose support base is mostly among the Pashtun ethnic minority, has long blamed the Pakistani army's heavy-handed operations in tribal regions. They allege that Pakistani army functions along with militant groups in federally administered tribal areas and indiscriminately uses brute force against innocent Pashtuns.
In news from Afghanistan, a car bomb targeting a U.S. convoy exploded in Afghan capital Kabul on Friday, wounding 4 U.S. service members and causing a number of other casualties. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack.
A car bomb targeting a U.S. convoy exploded in Afghan capital Kabul on Friday, wounding 4 U.S. service members and causing a number of other casualties, officials said. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the blast, which came a day after the Islamic State militant group claimed a suicide attack outside a military training academy that killed at least 6 people. There were conflicting reports about the total number of casualties caused by the blast, while a spokesperson for U.S. forces in Afghanistan confirmed that at least 4 U.S. service members were wounded in the explosion. Meanwhile, local media reports said that at least 4 civilians were killed in the attack.
که طوری شده که نمی‌فهمیم که چقدر مردم شهید زخمی شده ما هم میشه شیشه سر ما آوار کردن دیگه مثل ما ور مردم خیلی آوار شد کات در خانه آوار شد کات در سر کات در دکان کات در نانبایی.
Friday's attack, shortly before next week's Eid holiday, came as a delegation of Taliban officials met senior Afghan politicians in Moscow for discussions about a possible peace process to end 18 years of war in Afghanistan.
More on news from Afghanistan. Moscow talks on Afghan peace between Afghan politicians and the Taliban concluded on Thursday. A Taliban official said that decent progress had been made during the 2-day talks, but that there had been no breakthrough. He said that further talks would be needed.
The 2-day meeting between Afghan politicians and Taliban members in Moscow concluded on Thursday, making decent progress in the peace talks, said a Taliban official. The delegation led by Chief Taliban negotiator Mullah Baradar Akhand met politicians including senior regional leaders and candidates challenging President Ashraf Ghani in this year's presidential election amid gathering diplomatic efforts to end the 18-year-old war. The two sides, after the discussions on May 28th and 29th, later on Thursday also issued a statement that highlighted the discussed issues, reports said.
Yes, we are satisfied. It was successful negotiation, and we hope to continue this tempo in future.
So what is the new step considering from the previous meeting that you had? What's new have been achieved?
Yes, there was many issues that we discussed that we had not discussed. We had not discussed in our last meeting. So that's progress.
The statement issued after the Moscow meeting reads that the two sides will continue their discussions in the future to build up the agreements made in the last Moscow meeting in February. In February also, a number of Afghan politicians met the Taliban members in Moscow, where they held a two-day discussion on the Afghan peace and at the end issued a joint declaration. Reports suggest that the next round of intra-Afghan meeting will be held in Doha, but the timing is not specified.
Inmates of Coimbatore Central Prison in India's southern Tamil Nadu province have been given a unique opportunity of working at a shop as part of an initiative meant to reform and rehabilitate them. While some prisoners work at the shop, the rest of them prepare the products inside the prison.
Inmates of Coimbatore Central Prison in India's southern Tamil Nadu province have been given a unique opportunity of working at a shop as part of an initiative meant to reform and rehabilitate them. Housing a bakery, restaurant and a grocery store, the prison bazaar or prison market is run entirely by prisoners. All the items available in the bazaar have been made by the inmates. The prisoners are chosen to work in the bazaar on the basis of their behavior. While some prisoners work at the shop, the rest of them prepare the products inside the prison.
அவங்க வெளியே போனாங்கன்னா அவங்களுக்கு பெனிஃபிட். அது உள்ளுக்குள்ள போனாலே அவங்க திருந்தி இவங்க ஒரு தொழில் செய்யறதுக்கு இவங்க பயிற்சி கொடுக்கறாங்க. இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பயிற்சி கொடுக்கிறது ரொம்ப நல்லது. ஏன்னா அவங்க திருந்தி வாழணும். இதுவே தொழிலா வெச்சிருக்க முடியாம இவங்க தொழிலா மாத்தி இவங்க ஒரு பேக்கரியோ இல்ல போர்வை பிரேக்ஷீட் பெனாயில் ஆயில் இந்த மாதிரி manufacture பண்ணி அவங்க ஒரு சொந்த தொழில் ஆரம்பிக்கிறதுக்கு இவங்க பிராக்டீஸ் கொடுக்கறாங்க.
The earnings from the shop are collected by the prison authority and it is then transferred as monthly stipend to the bank accounts of the relatives of the inmates.
A 3-day-long annual Shane-e-Ramadan festival was recently organized at University of Kashmir in India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province. The festival was aimed at providing a platform to the youths to showcase their knowledge of Islam during the holy month of Ramadan.
A 3-day-long annual Shane-e-Ramadan festival was recently organized at University of Kashmir in India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province. During the festival, different types of poetry competitions including Husn-e-Naat, Husn-e-Kirat, Husn-e-Azan and Islamic calligraphy were organized, in which students hailing from different colleges of the valley participated. The event was specially held to mark the occasion of the holy month of Ramadan and to bring more awareness and participation among the younger generation in such type of religious activities that promote brotherhood and peace.
तो मैं खुद पर्सनली मैं तो बहुत ज़्यादा फील कर रहा हूँ. मुझे जो है ना रूहानी सुकून की जो लहर जो है वो दिखती हुई नज़र आ रही है ज़ाहिरी तौर पर, क्योंकि मैं गैदरिंग जब देख रहा हूँ मुख्तलिफ़ इलाकों से, मुख्तलिफ़ कॉलेज से, दूर दराज इलाकों से जो है बच्चे आए हैं पार्टिसिपेशन के लिए, तो मैं बहुत अच्छा फील कर रहा हूँ.
कंपटीशन हम इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि जो यूथ है ना वो हम इससे मजहबी रवादारी से थोड़ा डिस्टेंट होते जा रहे हैं. So to get them back on the track, we basically, organize these kind of seminars.
The university also felicitated the winners of the different competitions. The participants appreciated the efforts of the university authorities in holding the festival and hoped that such competitions will be organized on regular intervals.
Well, that's all we have for you from South Asia this evening. Now our viewers can watch the show on southasianewsline.com. You can also visit us on facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline. and follow us on Twitter at @SAsia Newsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time next week. Have a great weekend. Good night.